Everything that you see, everything you hear, everything you feel is actually real. If you can be with all of that, your mind stops thinking. And so you move away from the problem, because the problem is the thinking mind. Meditation is brilliant, but you've got to understand meditation isn't just sitting still watching your breath. It's being aware of everything besides what you think. And if you can be aware of everything around you besides what you think, there is no problems anymore. They've all gone.
Hello, Vishrant.
Hello, Alec.
I wrote, I want nothing more than to be the calm, collected, confident, happy, and fun-loving version of me. I want nothing more than to be liberated.
So let's go one at a time. Let's go one at a time. How about being happy with the way you are? You see, if you can't be happy with the way you are, you can't be happy. This is just logic. You have to find a way to be happy with the way you are, whatever that might be. And the only way you can be happy with the way you are is to find a way to accept the way you are, whatever that may be. Until you can find acceptance of how you are, you can't be happy. You're wanting someone or yourself to wave a magic wand over you and make you this super confident, successful person. But you don't have that magic wand, and no one else does either. But what you do have is the power to make yourself happy by accepting yourself as you are, right here, right now. You do have that power. And so continue talking, continue your message to me, your question.
Yes, because I realized that this is more qualities of me as a person, and that liberation is beyond even that.
Way beyond that.
Yes, but I have also realized that these qualities that I describe is a consequence of the letting go and coming back to my essence of being.
Yes, maybe. I had those qualities before awakening that you described, but they don't necessarily make you happy. What made me happy was love. Really, if we really look at it, I was confident, I was successful. It wasn't necessarily making me happy. I had all those things. And so you get all those things, and what if you're not happy with those things either? You then have to have a look at, well, what can make you happy? And I found that the only thing that could make me happy was love. If we look, and I called it manageable happiness, because as long as love was there, I felt that I was happy, but it was manageable. And it was manageable because I had to be in service to find it. And I love being in service, but that's why I call it manageable. On awakening, something else was discovered: profound contentment of the mind for no reason, which is what I now call happiness. Profound contentment for no reason. But you have to wake up for that to occur. On the way to waking up, you can actually look at, well, what will really make you happy? I can assure you that being confident and successful isn't the answer, because I did that. I did it to death. It doesn't, you just want more, because you're programmed for wanting more. It's like these rich people, they get successful and then they want more and more and more and more and more, you know, it's because that's how they've been programmed. If you can program yourself to be in acceptance of how you are right now, you can actually be happy. But you have to program yourself to be in acceptance, because you've been programmed to not be in acceptance of yourself. Does that make sense?
made us.
Yeah.
And so the obstacle towards that is, in my experience, the contractions that I experience both in my body and in my mind. There's both the unwillingness to feel certain emotions, and there's also the
You're doing very well so far. What emotions aren't you willing to feel? So you said certain emotions. What emotions aren't you willing to feel?
I haven't really mapped it out like that, but
You see, you got to remember, once upon a time, I was a seeker, and so these are questions I asked myself. I explored myself to find the answers to these questions. But you actually have to be quite specific when you're exploring. If you are very general in the way you're looking, you'll miss everything. You have to be quite specific. And so you'd need to name, at least for yourself, the emotions that you think you might be avoiding. Yeah? What else?
so I've realized that a lot of my daily life is actually spent in suffering.
Oh no. Why? That's a good question. Why do you suffer? What creates your suffering?
I guess unwillingness to accept myself as I am and how I feel at the moment.
So what is it about you that you don't accept? Besides the fact you've got a flu kind bug at the moment. Yeah. If you were in my clinic and I was working as a naturopath, I'd take one step backwards. I'd hazard to guess you're a bit sick at the moment. Or emotional. What is it you don't accept about yourself? What is it you don't like about yourself?
I don't like my lack of being a man.
Ah, yeah, well,
You know,
you probably weren't programmed to be a man. You probably weren't taught how to be one. You got let down by your parents. Not that you can turn yourself into a victim of that, because it's still your responsibility to go into manhood because you're old enough to be a man. But that's up to you now. And that means that you have, what I did, because I wasn't much of a man when I was very young, I actually role modelled off men who I could see were men, and I copied their roles until they became mine. That took a few years, by the way, because my dad is still a little boy in an old body. You know, he didn't teach me how to be a man, and my mum couldn't teach me how to be a man because she was never home or never there. And so I had to learn how to be a man myself. And so what I did is I copied men, their roles in life that were meant, that I could see were men. You know, I copied them until it became my own role, and I gave myself no choice. And so if you're unhappy with how you are as far as maturity is concerned, which is manhood, do something about it. But feeling sorry for yourself over it won't help it. You know, that doesn't work. What works is you getting active and doing something. I do understand your position.
I really like, you have talked about that a lot, to not be a victim,
Yeah, that's a big one.
to not, to dwell in victim mentality. And I've realized that I've done that a lot, and I've ruined relationships.
Yep.
Part of getting out of that is I think, taking responsibility for your own suffering.
Yeah, absolutely.
To bear it yourself and not put it on external events or people or
Yep,
circumstances or whatnot.
absolutely. You're going in the right direction. Absolutely. But it's a slow process because you've spent a lot of your life as an immature person, and that'll be default programming now. And so default programming is quite hard to change. But if you really want to, you can. But that's up to you. If you're really sick of the way you are, move to change and make it so. You can do it. It just takes a while. And you will fail a lot. I failed a lot. It's okay to fail.
All of this is just so frustrating because I know I can't say that I know exactly what liberation feels like because I have not been permanently liberated, so to speak, but I've had Satori experiences and I realized that what I'm looking for is as close to me as it could possibly get, you know?
Yep.
And here I am putting in all this effort just to like realize what I am, what I already am. And
That's true. That's true. But you know, an immature mind,
so frustrating to me.
yeah, but an immature mind won't support what is found. An immature mind will attract awareness back to itself, consciousness back to itself. And so you have to develop a mature mind, because a mature mind will support what you found, what you've already glimpsed. An immature mind will actually just drag you back into the mind, basically. And so a mature mind is a requirement for continuous enlightenment. And so you're on the right track. You've got to get a mature mind because you want to know yourself as truth, which you already are, and you know that, but you need a mind that will support that. And only a mature mind will support that.
So what is the actual process? Because I realize meditation but there can be no effort in the meditation. I realized there can be no
No
like
effort. That's it. Yeah, that's true. No effort.
if I start meditating more, if I start sitting more, you know, in just meditating, I realize I put in more effort and it becomes like a process. And, you know, it doesn't really work. It can be some temporary relief, but then I'm back in
Meditation takes you
ego
out of your mind.
consciousness.
Meditation takes you out of the mind. Like, if you're just aware of everything around you, you can't think. See, the problem is thinking, you know? If you can get out of your head, and meditation really is just being present to what is real, and everything that you see, everything you hear, everything you feel is actually real. If you can be with all of that, your mind stops thinking. And so you move away from the problem, because the problem is the thinking mind. Meditation is brilliant, but you've got to understand meditation isn't just sitting still watching your breath. It's being aware of everything besides what you think. And if you can be aware of everything around you besides what you think, there is no problems anymore. They've all gone. You know, there's a liberation in that. And I discovered that when I was quite young. I loved being present to reality. That's why I drove motorbikes at high speed. It's why I raced cars. It's why I played rugby. It's why I did martial arts. Because in those sports, I could be absolutely present to reality and got away from my own mind. It wasn't until I met Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh that I realized that meditation can actually be all the time. All we got to do is be aware of what is real instead of what is not. And the only thing that's not real is what you think. And so I live in meditation. It's my default pattern. I don't try to meditate. I am in meditation.
I understand that. Yes, and I want to be in that state so badly. Like and then, you know, I am suddenly, and it can last, for some time, but then it goes away again.
Yeah. And you have to be okay with that too.
It drives me fucking nuts.
Yeah, well, you have to be okay with everything that appears. The moment you go into resistance, you create hell for yourself. Yeah, but you're responsible for the resistance. I'm never going to tell anyone that this is an easy game, because it's not. Because we were all programmed at school to live in our heads. All of us. And so reversing that process is difficult, but it's possible. My default pattern is to be present to reality, because I learned not to live in my head anymore. My default pattern is to be wide open, so I experience heart pretty much all the time. But that's a default pattern that I programmed into myself through practice, not through good luck, not because I was born on the right side of the tracks, but because I practiced until I got good at it, Whatever you practice, you will be good at. If you're good at suffering, it's because you've practiced suffering an awful lot. Yeah. Yep. Stop it. Stop practicing suffering. Practice being present to reality. Everything around you, everything you hear is real. Everything you see is real. Everything you think is bullshit. Where are you, by the way, Alec? Whereabouts?
What do you mean, in the world?
Yeah, in the world. In the world.
In Sweden.
Ah, right. Ah, it's a good place to be present. I find everywhere a good place to be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's all present,
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Absolutely. It's just that what you're doing is fighting habits. You're fighting default patterns of your mind. And you're trying to create new ones. And that does take time, it does take effort. And unfortunately, you fail a lot. Someone who's succeeded in waking up has just failed more than everybody else. And instead of stopping, they've got up and tried again. That's all. Anything else, Alec?
Eyes open or eyes closed, doesn't matter.
Well, if you're walking on the street and there's traffic, it's best to your eyes open, mate.
Yeah, when I'm sitting and meditating, doesn't matter because
it does. It makes a difference. Yeah. Leave them open at a 45-degree angle because you're likely to go into dream otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
See, for the first 10 years of formal meditation, which for me was watching the breath, I sat in a half lotus position with my eyes at a 45-degree angle, open, watching my breath. Because if I shut them, I started to dream.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you, Alec.